Before Spain arrived, Filipinos weren't illiterate savages waiting to be civilized. They had their own writing system. They wrote love letters, recorded debts, carved poetry into bamboo. Then, within a few generations, it vanished. This is the story of Baybayin, the ancient Filipino script that nearly died, and why it's making a controversial comeback. The discovery. In the 1590s, a Spanish friar named Francisco Lopez documented something that shocked the colonial administration. He wrote, "Almost everyone can read and write in their own characters. Not just the elite, everyone, fishermen, farmers, women, children." The literacy rate in pre-colonial Philippines may have been higher than in Spain itself. The script was called Baybayin, meaning to spell or to write. It consisted of 17 characters, 3 vowels and 14 consonants. But here's what made it elegant. It was an abugida script, where each consonant carried an inherent vowel sound that could be modified with small marks called cudlet. How it worked, unlike our alphabet today with 26 letters, Baybayin was efficient. The character for BA could become BI or BU, with a single dot above or below. No character was wasted. It was designed specifically for Tagalog, Ilocano, Bisaya, and other Philippine languages, capturing sounds that Spanish letters struggled with. Ancient Filipinos wrote on bamboo, bark, and palm leaves using knives or bamboo pens with plant-based ink. According to Spanish records, they wrote letters constantly, love notes, trade agreements, even curses carved into tree bark. The Laguna copper plate. The oldest surviving example of Philippine writing isn't even Baybayin, it's older. The Laguna copper plate inscription from 900 AD used a script borrowed from Indonesian kingdoms, proving Filipinos had been literate for centuries before Baybayin even developed. This wasn't a primitive society. This was a culture embedded in the literate civilizations of maritime Southeast Asia. The erasure begins. So what happened? Why did an entire nation forget how to read its own writing? The Spanish didn't ban Baybayin outright. That would have caused rebellion. Instead, they did something more insidious. They made it obsolete. First, they introduced the Roman alphabet through Catholic education. If you wanted to participate in the new colonial economy, read religious texts, or communicate with authorities, you needed Spanish letters. Baybayin became useless for upward mobility. Second, the materials. Spanish introduced paper and ink, permanent, durable. Meanwhile, bamboo and bark degraded within years. Within 2 generations, there were barely any Baybayin texts left to learn from. Third, the doctrine. Friars associated indigenous writing with pre-Christian beliefs, with Babaylans and ancient rituals. Learning Baybayin became spiritually suspicious. Parents stopped teaching it to protect their children. By the 1700s, Baybayin had virtually disappeared from everyday use. A writing system that had served Filipinos for centuries was gone in roughly 150 years. The revival fast forward to today. Walk through Manila and you'll see Baybayin everywhere. Tattoos, clothing brands, street art, government logos. It's trendy. But here's the controversy. Most people using it can't actually read it. The modern Baybayin movement started in the early 2000s, gaining momentum through social media. Filipinos in the diaspora, disconnected from their heritage, found Baybayin as a way to reclaim identity. It became a symbol of resistance against colonial mentality. In 2018, a congressman filed a bill to make Baybayin the national writing system, requiring it on currency, government documents, and schools. Supporters celebrated it as decolonization, Critics called it performative nationalism, teaching a dead script while millions of Filipino children still struggle with basic literacy. The modern debate. Here's the question nobody wants to ask. Is reviving Baybayin actually useful or just aesthetic? Linguists point out that modern Baybayin faces serious problems. The original script had no standardized way to write consonant clusters or final consonants. Sounds that appear constantly in modern Filipino languages filled with Spanish, English, and Malay loanwords. Writing computer or basketball in Baybayin requires made-up rules that ancient Filipinos never used. Some scholars argue we're not reviving Baybayin, we're inventing a new version and calling it ancient. Others say that's fine. Languages evolve, scripts evolve. What matters is the cultural reconnection, what was really lost. But here's what haunts me about this story. It's not just the script that disappeared, it's everything written in it. We have almost no pre-colonial Filipino literature, no epic poems in their original form, no historical records from a Filipino perspective. The Spaniards burned libraries of bamboo books, dismissing them as pagan. What we know about ancient Philippines comes almost entirely from Spanish accounts. The perspective of colonizers, not the colonized. Imagine if the only records of ancient Greece came from Persian conquerors. That's what happened to Philippine history. The bottom line, Baybayin isn't just an alphabet. It's evidence of what was taken. Every time a Filipino gets a Baybayin tattoo, they're not just making a fashion statement, they're tattooing a scar. A reminder that their ancestors were literate, sophisticated, and connected to a wider world before they were told they needed saving. Will Baybayin become practical again? Probably not. Most Filipinos will never use it beyond their Instagram bios. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the revival isn't about utility, it's about memory. It's about refusing to forget that something precious was deliberately erased. The script nearly died, but it didn't. And in a world that tried to make Filipinos forget their own words, maybe that's revolutionary enough. The colonizers won the battle. They erased the script from daily life, but they didn't erase the hunger to remember. And that hunger, that refusal to let the past stay buried, might be the most ancient Filipino tradition of all.